Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker today, or in the morning session, is Shane McEneaney. Shane is Senior Contracts Manager with ABM, part of the ABM Europe Group. Shane has over 16 years experience in the construction industry and has gained his project management experience on a large number of design and build projects at the senior level. Shane joined ABM in 2004, having previously run his own successful design and build company. He's also held positions as site architect, senior architectural technologist and project manager. ABM use advanced architectural and structural engineering, design technology and computer software to create value engineered structures for their clients. Their in-house team of structural engineers, designers and technicians collaborate to ensure versatility and the constructability of the final design. Key feature of their process is the time spent in the initial parts of the project to identify and resolve potential difficulties. A recent project completed by ABM was the Gale Score Durra, which is immediately across the road, you've seen when you had your tea in the foyer. Today, Shane will address the growth of prefabrication and other innovations in the design and build marketplace, some of which have been touched upon by previous speakers.
Thank you. I suppose my own background, I studied architectural technology, project management and physical planning in Bolton Street and Trinity. So I'm not a traditional contractor. But I suppose the last, most of my career, I've spent both in construction and in design, or managing design, if not actually in design. Why do we prefabricate, I suppose, is the question. And what are the benefits to prefabricating in the construction industry? I think cost, if you're a main contractor, cost is the driving factor. Using prefabrication, there's more cost certainty. If you're building a building and you're using blocks, mortar, you've got teleporters, silos, all of the interfaces between trades and tasks on site that create uncertainty and potential cost. If you use a prefabricated system, all of these schools, in fact, had a prefabricated structural system, differing types of structural system. The system on slide 7 there on the lower left-hand side, that's called a fusion system. It was built in Cork in a factory in Ringaskiddy, shipped to site and assembled. The entire building was assembled in about 3 weeks. So if you go back to blocks and mortar, traditional way of building, I suppose you're probably talking about more like 3 months to build something like that. The system, from a cost point of view, it reduces your prelims on site. So you don't have the same amount of people walking around, you don't have the same amount of supervision on site, you don't have the same overhead. You know, you've reduced supervision, you've got maybe one site manager, and you push the costs onto the subcontractor. So when they're in their factory, they're not subject to the REA, which is the Registered Employment Agreement. They use factory labour, do the job in a factory environment, and then on site, they take on the supervision of the erection of their own system. So again, reduces your own supervision. I suppose the other thing about costs could be based outside Ireland or indeed the UK or Europe. If you're importing prefabricated systems from the Far East, China or India, as the previous speaker mentioned, there's great cost benefits because the labour costs are far reduced in those countries. I think the biggest driver of prefabricated systems in Ireland over the last 20 years were the people paying the bills at the end of it. So the contractors, the developers. it doesn't always suit the client. I suppose from a cost point of view, to the client, it does give certainty of cost. The client isn't left with an open checkbook. He does get the opportunity to have a design input early on. But then, I suppose later on once the design is agreed, there's no changes, and changes, I suppose, attach costs typically in building construction. Time on a construction site costs money. The longer you're there, the more it costs. So I suppose with prefabricated systems, it's easier to manage your program. The lead-in on your program can be a little longer, and I think the previous speaker talking about BIM, that's the one downfall to BIM or prefabrication. You need to do all your design up front, and it has to be complete. You can't change, once the building goes into manufacture, you can't change the size, you can't change the opes, you can't change the doors, etc. It's the design, once the design is set and the prefabricated structure is constructed in the factory, there is no scope to change. I suppose that the school across the way, I think, is on the lower right-hand side there. That's Gale School. The company I work with, we've built, as you can see, a tremendous amount of schools over the last 8 or 10 years, always utilizing some form of prefabrication. I see Stuart's have a thing out in the lobby there. The reason we prefabricate for the schools, because they're rapid build schools, typically they start in January and need to be delivered by September to be occupied by the pupils. The one you see in the slide at the moment, it's a steel structure with an infill panel, and again, utilizing some precast concrete. Yeah, METSEC, I suppose, would be, again, from a structural point of view, one of the preferred methods of construction. The panels are erected or assembled off-site. Those particular panels were assembled in Northampton and shipped to Ireland. So I suppose it accelerates the program. The quality also is affected by prefabricating off-site. When prefabricating in a factory environment, you're not subject to weather conditions, you're not subject to wind, all of the environmental conditions that make construction difficult. Particularly this year, we've had more rain than in the last, 10 years. When we built Gaelscoil Dara across the road, it rained almost every day. So trying to do things traditionally, it slows down the job, it costs money, and the quality slips. Because if the environmental conditions are poor, the supervision tends to be difficult. Guys don't like being out on site, and they tend to maybe cut corners. So with prefabricated systems, you've got factory conditions. It's easier to supervise because you pass on the responsibility to the fabricator or the specialist subcontractor, and you've got less trades on site. I suppose the downfall to the quality issues is that you don't have direct supervision of the actual construction. So for example, if you're buying in pods, bathroom pods for a hotel or whatever, although all the elements are assembled in a factory, we had a situation where the pods were stored outside. So when they got to site, they looked fine, but plywood starts to delaminate, plasterboard gets mildew or mold on it. So again, it's important in prefabrication that you do have a good relationship with the prefabricator and that you spend time in the factory supervising to some degree the construction of whatever element of the building is relevant. I suppose timber frame is another structure prefabricated off-site. The lower right-hand side is a Kingspan Century timber frame. So they use a met set ground floor with a structural first floor and a timber frame top floor. Again, very efficient, about a 3 or 3.5 week construction period. Some other projects we did for the HSU, we've done 2 in Galway. We did 1 in Loughrea and 1 in Ballinasloe. Community nursing units, all prefabricated. The structures were all prefabricated off-site. Cork, country cord. Here's some slides of how they're constructed. That's the one in Loughrea. Again, that building is a 6,500 square metre building that was constructed in about 35 weeks. So typically a building of that nature, 3 stories over a basement, would be constructed in about 12 to 18 months using traditional methods. The cost or value of the project was about 10.5 or 11 million. So again, from a cost point of view, quite efficient per square metre for a medical type building. I suppose there's not much else I can say. The prefabrication in the construction industry is critical, in my view, from a commercial point of view and a main contractor's point of view. It allows you to get control of the project, and the more prefabrication you do, the more control you have. The less activity on site, the more control you have. The more activity on site, the less control. Unfortunately, I think that the biggest downfall is trying to get clients on board with early planning, early design. What's happening with the new government contracts, because they don't allow a long lead-in, from the time you get your letter of acceptance, you have to go to site immediately. The program demands it. So without the lead-in period, you can't utilize the benefits of prefabrication. Like a program is. There's a period you need for design process. That's 10 weeks. 10 weeks off-site planning is not very expensive. 10 weeks on-site building is very expensive. So the more time you get to plan in a building project gives you the opportunity to utilize the prefabrication of all the elements. Like you can, I suppose, what I've looked at there is structural systems. You can go into the mechanical and the electrical systems. You can prefabricate boiler rooms, air handling systems, all of that. And the more time you have in design, the better able to utilize it you are. That's all I have to say. Thank you.